Are you looking to buy an antique home in the Metro West area of Boston? I sell lots of homes and I actually love selling antique homes. And I even live in a beautiful Victorian in Wellesley. I've even had YouTubers like you asking me specifically about what they need to know about buying an antique home. So in this video, we thought it would be fun to share some things that you should consider when you're house hunting and have identified an antique home that you'd like to make your own. So I hope you enjoy. I'm Jane. I'm a realtor in Wellesley, Massachusetts, and my channel is all about buying homes in the Metro West area of Boston. So please subscribe as we put out a new video each week. And in fact, in my next video, I'm going to share some recent sales of antique homes, which I hope you'll enjoy. And if you are moving to Greater Boston, please reach out as I would be delighted to help you. So for this video, we're going to consider an antique home to be anything built before 1900. Technically, an antique is anything over 100 years old, which would be 1924, but we're going to talk specifically about some issues that we see in 19th century homes, like mine. Whenever I have buyers considering a home for purchase, we always want to have an inspection and consider structural, mechanical, and safety items to be considered just to make sure that we have a home that is providing a safe environment for your family. The potential health or safety hazards that come along with an antique home, two things that we always look out for. So one is asbestos. So in the olden days, they used asbestos as insulation. It was excellent insulation. They used it to wrap cast iron pipes in your basement and maybe in the walls. And also sometimes they had asbestos siding. When buyers are looking at homes with exposed asbestos, my recommendation is always to have an environmental company that specializes in that come in and remove it. Not as expensive and scary as it sounds. So the guys come in hazmat suits, they cut out the pipes that's wrapped in asbestos and replace it with nice PVC pipe, which you probably is the more plasticky looking thing that you might be familiar with. The other thing that's something to consider is the wiring. When these homes were built, there was no electricity. When they added electricity, the kind they used was knob and tube wiring. And it actually looks like a knob and a tube. At this point, if someone's looking at an antique, I recommend that they just budget in to have it replaced with new wiring. When we bought this home in 2017, a lot of the house had been updated in the 70s. The electrician said it was a little bit scary. The walls on the third floor, they just found some frayed wires and stuff. So we had the entire house rewired, which is, of course, that's a substantial cost, but it might not be as bad as you think. That is something that I, as a local realtor with connections in the trades, can help you find a person who's going to be thorough and get rid of the wiring without causing you an arm and a leg. One other thing to consider is plumbing. So the original pipes in most homes of this era are cast iron. So the big pipes you see that everything runs into the main pipe in your basement, they decay from the inside out. When we're doing inspections, which of course with an antique, 100% of the time you need to do an inspection. You can even have a plumber come and take a look and give you an estimate to see what it would be to upgrade those pipes. So again, they'll just cut out that chunk and replace it with a PVC product, which is the current standard. So those are some things that we consider more safety. So then we're going to get to some of the idiosyncrasies of living in an antique home. Some of the things you're going to find in a Victorian, some buyers might see them as a negative, while other buyers are going to see them as a positive. So it's really about taste and style and what you're looking for. So some of the things you're going to find in Victorians, like my home, kind of quirky layouts. A lot of times you'll have them be vertical homes. We have 3 floors of living space and not a huge footprint. Sometimes you'll see small kitchens and small baths and Lord knows small closets with more rooms and less storage, because back then, most people didn't need to swap out their clothes for every season, or the servants only had 2 dresses. That is something that you'll see. Now, we've knocked down some walls and a lot of times it's easy to open up, but it might not be as a traditional classic floor plan that a buyer looking at new construction would like. We have a very pitched roof on our house. We actually have a slate roof. That's just a very different maintenance than replacing your roof every 20 years. A slate roof, you need an expert to come every 3 to 5 years and kind of look at and they replace individual slates that have decayed. I actually went with our slate guy up in his bucket up to the roof so he could teach me all about my roof, and we learned that our slate came from Vermont, and he said the slate is original, so it has been up there since 1878. They get broken off, with the weather or things fall on them, so he replaced the broken ones. So instead of buying a new roof every 20 years for $20,000 or $30,000, you're going to spend several $1,000s every couple of years replacing the broken slate. So that was an adventure that I had once that I do not plan to do again. Another thing to consider with Victorian or antique homes is that you might have a damp, scary basement. Before the 1920s, when they made basements, they used fieldstone. And fieldstone are just basically big rocks that they fit together, and they would put some kind of mortar type stuff between them, and they weep, just like any concrete will weep because it gets wet. Now we have like a concrete floor, and you can always pour a new floor, but we're actually looking into having our basement damp proofed. So that's something to consider too. And then finally, here's a good news, bad news thing. We have original windows. I think this is amazing and fantastic. You can actually see the wave in the glass, because that's how, when they made glass, that's how you know it's original. It was handmade. And then we had retrofitted storms. A lot of people want new windows. They want the convenience of being able to tilt them, or they do not like the romance of the storm window as a separate thing that you have to slide up and down the sash. We have no plans to replace our windows. Also, if we were going to replace them with a similar wood window, it would be wildly expensive because they're oversized and a custom size most likely, and it would be $1,200 a window, which is more than in a newer home where the window opening is smaller. Again, a purist would keep the old windows, and if you think that sounds terrible, then maybe a Victorian is not for you, which is fine. The other thing to consider with maintenance, it might be a little bit different. You know, we have a place on our hardwood floors in our living room. It's a different style. It's not a typical oak wood, and if we ever needed to replace part of it, you can't go to Home Depot and pick up some flooring, or your flooring guy would have to go to the custom place, or like we have wide barn boards on our second floor. It's a little bit of a project to replace. You know, maybe not more expensive, but a little bit more of a pain in the neck. I don't think it's more expensive to replace a bathroom in a Victorian versus a newer home. That kind of thing is pretty much the same, unless you run into replacing those pipes in the basement if they're original cast iron. I have one more nerdy thing to tell you. When they framed homes in the Victorian era, they used something called balloon framing. When you build a house now, they will build a floor, walls and ceiling, and then they build the second story on top of that. In Victorian times, they actually built the whole house and then added the floors later. We've also blown insulation into our house. We like old homes, so we've bought quite a few over the years, and we found a theme that in the olden days, they would insulate them by crumpling up newspaper and sticking them in the walls. Over the years, that insulation just all falls into the basement because it kind of shrinks. So we've blown insulation in all of our older homes. So now they're snug and cozy, but they're never going to be as tight as new construction. They're just not. That's part of the charm. So if you're thinking about moving to Metro West or the surrounding areas of Boston, please reach out, and please remember to subscribe, as I have lots of different videos about different towns and different topics like this one. Keep an eye out for that next video where I'm going to feature some recent sales of antique homes in the Metro West area. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.